Hey everybody, today we're going to be looking at a passage from 1 Samuel chapter 3 for our Devo. It's not a whole lot of verses that we're going to read, but these are jam-packed with all sorts of really cool things that we're going to dive into a little bit today. So I'll start here in verse 1. Now the boy Samuel was ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli, and the word of the Lord was rare in those days, and there was no frequent vision. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim so that he couldn't even see, was laying down in his own place. The lamp of the Lord had not yet gone out, and Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord, where the ark was. Then the Lord called Samuel, and he said, "Here I am." And that's all we're going to read today. Like I said, it's not a lot, but let's see what's going on here. So if you've read up to this point in the story, you know who Samuel is. Hannah, his mom, was barren. She promised that if she was given a son, that she would give him back. So Samuel is now working in this temple area. Eli and his sons are the main priests here, and they seem to be pretty worthless. So we have, we're picking up into seeing like day-to-day stuff here. Now the boy Samuel is ministering to the Lord in the presence of Eli, this guy who, it's debatable whether he was a good guy or bad guy, but let's leave that alone. And then we get a really important detail. And the word of the Lord was rare in those days, and there was no frequent vision. And immediately following, make an explanation as to why. At that time, Eli, whose eyesight had begun to grow dim, so that he could not see, was lying in his place. It makes you wonder why we get this detail about Eli here, because we've already been introduced to him. We know this Eli guy. We've heard a few stories about him. But here is when we get the detail that his eyesight had begun to grow dim. Is it possible that the reason there was no frequent vision is because the eyesight of those who are supposed to be closest to God had been limited? Something is going on here. We see that there was no frequent vision. Perhaps it's because of this. And then verse 3, we get a little spark of hope. Even though there is no frequent vision, even though Eli, the head priest, seems to not even be able to see normal things, much less spiritual things. Verse 3, the lamp of God had not yet gone out. There is this bit of light here in the temple that is this little flicker of hope. Even though Eli can't clearly see it, even though there is no frequent vision, the lamp of God has not yet gone out. And Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark was. And so you see a couple things here. So Eli seems to be, he's old, he can't see, and perhaps this is a metaphor for why there's no frequent visions from God. And we see that he's lying down in his own place. He's in his bed, he's doing all these comfortable things. And where's Samuel? He's not even a priest at this point, he's just someone who's assisting in the temple, ministering before the Lord. But Samuel was lying down in the temple of the Lord where the ark was. And the Lord called to Samuel and he said, "Here I am." We have a picture of a priest here. That's not where he's supposed to be. He doesn't seem to have the capacity to see God working or to see these visions. Yet we have this young child who is sitting in a place illuminated by the light of God. Though it doesn't seem to be a significant flame, but the flame of the Lord had not yet gone out. And he's sitting in the very place that is the hot spot of the presence of God. He's sitting in the temple and he's sitting right next to the ark. Not too close because, zap. But he's in this presence. He's in the spiritual hot spot. And you have this you see this image here of the people who are supposed to be the spiritual leaders of Israel that are off in their own place and they're blind, they can't see. And then you have this young child who doesn't seem to be any super special except for his mother. He's just a servant boy in the temple. But he's where he needs to be. And he is where the light is. So I want to ask you, where are you? It's really easy, even as for someone like me who's a minister for a living, it's really easy for me to let my eyes grow dim, to look around the world and not see how God's working, not be able to see God in it. And it's so easy sometimes for those little children to see God everywhere. And their heart is right where it needs to be when sometimes mine is off somewhere comfortable, somewhere that I've made my own space. So I want to ask you, where are you today? Are your eyes dim? Is the reason you're not seeing God in your life, is the reason for that because you are choosing not to see? Is there something that needs to be done to your vision to make it to where you can actually see God working? I know for me sometimes it depends on the day. But I want you to think about this. Where are you? And is there something you could do? So you have Eli here who's sitting in his own place, his own comfort zone, where if he was in the hot spot, if he was in this temple right up close to the ark, I wonder if he would have started seeing things. So maybe in your life you need to get closer to the heart of God. You need to be in the Word. You need to be praying, having a conversation with Him, engaging in this relationship. And it's amazing how some of the time we don't do that. We don't look into God's Word. We don't listen to His heartbeat. We don't try and talk to Him. And yet sometimes we feel like, oh man, God's just not here. He's nowhere. Why can't I see Him? Why can't I feel Him in my life? And a lot of the time it's just because you're in your room. You're not in the presence of God. You haven't chosen to go out and be in a place where God is and where God makes Himself easily found. And if you're in this place, you've already acknowledged, okay, I'm ready to be in the presence of God. And you know the rest of the story. So Samuel, he's not sure who's calling him. He's confused about it. He goes to Eli. Eventually Eli realizes what's going on. Dad just really wants Samuel to leave him alone because he's sleeping in his room. And Samuel asks God, okay, here I am. What? Speak, Lord. Your servant is listening. And a lot of time that's all we have to do. We have to be listening in a place and have our hearts ready to hear and see God. And you'll be amazed at how often He speaks and how often He shows you what you need to do. So today, if you're not in a place, if you're off in your own space, if you're off in your own room, if your eyes have grown dim, I want you to know this. The light of the Lord has not gone out. It is everywhere. All you have to do is go find it. All you have to do is seek. We're promised, seek and you will find. Knock and the door will be open. God isn't a God who's trying to hide Himself. He makes it plain where to find Him. So maybe you need to seek. And maybe you're in these places and you're hearing these voices talking to you. You hear, maybe not like actual voices, but you hear God trying to speak into your life in a variety of ways. And maybe you're just trying to figure out where this voice is coming from. Maybe you're like, okay, here I am. And then you go and check on something that's totally irrelevant. Maybe you just need to be open to the fact that it could be God talking to you. Wherever you are, I just want you to think about it and make some steps to get yourself into that place where you're more open to God acting in your life. So often people, and myself included, I go through seasons of my life where I feel like I have not seen God active. And then I take a look back and I realize, how did I not see this? He was everywhere. He was guiding me every step of the way. And if you're not seeing God in your life right now, you probably will sometime down the line looking back on where you are. But all that aside, take a look at where you are today. The light of the lamp of the Lord has not gone out. All you have to do is seek, and you will find. If you want to be notified whenever these videos are put up, you can subscribe, you can click the bell icon. Until then, we'll see you next time. Stay rooted in the Word and try and find, seek. Seek God, and you will find Him. We'll see you next time.